Welcome to 9 weeks of NESCAC Football Podcast. We are through 7 weeks alongside Dave Bagatelle, Chris Grace with you. We are so excited. What a wild, wacky week 6 we had. We had upsets, we had rivalry games, and what we have is it's all set up for an incredible finish. We've got some great guests. We've actually got a triple threat. We've got 3 guests for you on this one. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the podcast. But for now, I want to let you guys know that every game day experience in the NESCAC is unique, but we would never have a game day experience without Game Day Sports. They are your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence, specializing in collaborating with teams to elevate their presence and create memorable keepsakes for every player and fan. With 25 years of experience working with NESCAC teams, trust Game Day Sports to bring your team story to life in vibrant print materials, ensuring every game day is one to remember. Dave, it's good to see you, my man. What a game day we had on Saturday. Looked for a while like it was going to get really crazy, but it still was pretty crazy. Oh, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it was by the way, great to see you, Chris. And it was great to be back for another week. Can't believe it's 7 weeks. We only got 2 to go in 9 weeks of the season. But yeah, it was unbelievable. The mighty are falling by the wayside. Obviously, Bates with a big upset of Middlebury, and Middlebury loses control of their own destiny if they have hopes of repeating as NESCAC champion. Of course, we'll talk about the game. Wes had a little bit of a scare there in the first quarter, and the rest of the games, I think, pretty much held the way we thought they were going to hold, although some of them were closer than what maybe people thought.
All right, Dave, not much for the teaser. He spoils the headlines here, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for. So we're going to walk through the games from last week. First and foremost, Hamilton, moments away from picking up their first win. They led deep into this one, but Keon Smart, who's been such a big player for Colby, the 19-yard touchdown catch to win it with 1:17 left. You got to feel for Hamilton. This is a team that has been knocking on the door, but still looking for their first win. The only winless team in the NESCAC. Colby's won 3 out of 4, everything to play for to try to have a winning season for Coach Cosgrove for the first time in a long time. We're going to speak with Coach Cosgrove a little bit later on in the podcast, but a big win for Colby, but a devastating loss for Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton's knocked on the door a couple times here, and Colby's defense is really good, and Hamilton made it close and gave it a shot, and they were a minute away from a win, and Colby snatched it. It was really nice drive there at the end, and great play, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, so we look at another big game, Trinity and Bowdoin. Final score, Trinity won 34-14. Bowdoin falls to 2-5, but much like we've seen from Colby, Bowdoin's been in pretty much every game they've played this year. At one point, this game was 21-14 in the second half. Bowdoin was right there, but Trinity just had a little bit too much. Xander Zabrowski had 3 touchdown passes, nearly 300 yards. Clapp got involved in the offense, 6 catches for 68 yards, 2 touchdowns, and into Napoli with 91 yards on the ground. Trinity just doing Trinity things. Bowdoin just didn't have enough. As expected, Dave, quick thoughts on this one.
First of all, here's a headline. Xander throws his first interception of the year. So there you go. Took him 7 games and still has 16 touchdown passes. So
not bad.
Pretty good.
He also ran through 50. He also ran the ball 14 times in this game.
Yeah. But like you said, Bowdoin was down by 7 in the
late in the third, yeah.
21-14, and then just Trinity pulled away. We've talked about it before, that high pressure Bowdoin defense, and they don't have a ton of subs, it seems. And the guys, I just think they get a little bit worn down towards the end of the games. And Trinity just has home game. They've got waves of players. They dress like 110 kids for a game, and they just
That's not true. Not true.
I'm gonna count next week up in Hartford. But anyway, they have a lot of guys and they've got a lot of depth and they just keep coming at you. But like you said, they've got a lot of talented players and they've got a lot of ways they can beat you. And eventually, I think they just wore down Bowdoin, and that was all she wrote.
We've talked about Bates and Middlebury. We've got a couple of Bobcats on this show. I watched that game. I watched the finality of that game. And obviously, I think the storyline is that was an opportunity for Middlebury to control their own destiny. But the Bobcats had other ideas, and they needed to make a play, and they made one. Beltran with a big catch and run, actually, because he caught a little button hook and then spun out of traffic on a big third down play, and they needed a touchdown. And Middlebury had an opportunity to make an upfield tackle, couldn't make the tackle, and then Middlebury drove down the field. Looked like they were setting up for a game-winning field goal, but the Bobcats kind of bend but didn't break and forced a really long field goal attempt, and it came up woefully short, and just a gigantic win for Bates. We don't need to take too much time on this because we got two Bobcat interviews coming up, but big win for Coach Coyne and the Bobcats.
Yeah, one of the things I think I don't want to have this get lost. Middlebury, uncharacteristically, their special teams are usually very good. They missed 3 field goals during this game, and their kicker, Zach Levy's been very good throughout his career, and just a couple of those were longer field goals. I think anything in the NESCAC over 40 yards is a crapshoot, as we've seen historically. But you hit one of those and we have a different outcome. So it was one of those days, Bates. I think the other impressive thing for me was the Bates offensive line really containing the Kennery and Phileas, who are both all-league guys. Kennery's a Division III All-American, and they were really non-factors in the game. So hats off to the Bates offensive line, who I thought did a tremendous job in that game.
Yeah, they did a great job, and it was really an incredible atmosphere in Maine, and just you think about it, you're 2-5, and your 2 wins are against a 5-2 defending NESCAC champion and a 6-1 team on the road. It's pretty impressive stuff. Speaking of the team that Bates handed their only loss to, Wesleyan Little 3 matchup, taking on Amherst, as I try to put you in a better mood here as Dave's live watching the Yankees blow Game 5 against the Dodgers. Listen, Amherst, I had the game on my phone. I was broadcasting soccer on Saturday, and this is a cliche and it's stupid. Rivalry games, throw it all out the window. We talked about it last week. I said, I'm pretty sure I might have said it on the pod. If not, I said it to you privately. Amherst is going to have something in this game. And they came out and they hit Wesleyan in the mouth. They jumped out 14-0. It could have been worse than that. Cardinals were able to just float above water, and they had 2 big drives at the end of the first half. And from that point on, it seemed like they settled in. They scored on their first drive of the second half, and then it was all Wesleyan. But early stages, I know, because I was texting with you, it was pretty uncomfortable for you, I imagine, at Pratt Field. Not that you would be there or be a supporter of Wesleyan, but if you were, and you were a supporter of Wesleyan, it must have been uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was there as a casual observer, just randomly.
For the podcast.
I was just driving through middle of Massachusetts on a
Western
Saturday.
Mass.
Yeah,
Western Mass.
decided whatever it is, and decided to just stop by and check out the game. Is the problem. Anyway, not the football game. We're watching the baseball game.
No, that's not true. I'm not. I'm focusing on Wesleyan and Amherst. I want to know what your thoughts were on this is the Little 3, Dave. This is the point of the podcast.
Wesleyan, as you had said, fell behind early. It could have been worse. Wesleyan's defense had a really nice stand. They get the ball back. The win was really a big factor in this game. You were either with the win or against the win. The team that had the win had a huge advantage in this game. And Wesleyan scored. They were down 14-0. They scored 31 unanswered points. I will tell you, the Wesleyan defense in the second half played just out of their mind. I think Amherst had something like 30 yards total offense in the second half. I will say this. Amherst made the move a couple weeks ago to go with Marik Hill, and he had quarterback. And my belief is he's the real deal. And if Amherst can get some players around him, they can get him some receivers, get him a running back, some offensive linemen, that they're going to have something there, because he's a very talented player. He can throw the ball, can run the ball. He's a good-sized quarterback. and tough to bring down. So I think that they've got the building blocks, and frankly, that's been a problem with Amherst the last couple of years, really, since they were good in 2018. They haven't had that guy at
Yeah, and
quarterback.
Coach Mills even said so much last week on our podcast. He was very transparent about the challenges of being a winning football team without finding dynamic play from the quarterback position. So hopefully, because the defense is going to be there for Amherst, that they're going to be well coached, that they're going to do the little things. Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on, because you're only going to hold a school like Amherst or Williams or Trinity. If they have a down year, you're going to hold them down for so long. The pedigree is there. All it takes is a few important alums to take notice, and they'll figure it out. And seems like maybe they might have a quarterback for the future, something to keep an eye on. Game of the week, listen, we're on a hot streak in terms of picking the right games for the game of the week. Williams and Tufts was a thriller. It was back and forth. Tufts held a decent lead throughout much of the game, and then Williams bounced right back, jumped into it, and it was anyone's for the taking late in that one. Tufts drove down the field, scored a touchdown, forced a turnover, kicked a field goal. Looked like it was over. Williams drives right back down, scores a touchdown to make it interesting, but just ran out of sands in the hourglass. But a heck of a game, and a really big game, because we'll touch on this later on. For Tufts, they're still in there with a shout. The way that this thing is setting up, they're still in there with a shout. There's a scenario where they have a chance, a chip in a chair, if you will. For Williams, they got 3 defeats, really, to 3 really good teams. But Williams' turnovers really cost them in this one. And for Tufts, a great road victory in Williamstown.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it was a close game. I picked Williams by 3, and Tufts, and this game could have gone either way. Kudos to Williams for as a team, they threw 4 interceptions on the day. One of them was on a trick play. The other 3 were by our guest last week, Owen McHugh. And it's tough to overcome throwing 4 interceptions. The other big blow in this game for Williams is they lost their star senior running back. It appears that he's lost. We'll see if he ends up playing against Wesleyan this week. But that's a big loss for them. Williams does run the ball very well. They have obviously Owen McHugh can run the ball. John Orris is a very talented player as well. But look, kudos to Tufts. Michael Berluti had a very productive day. He hasn't thrown a lot of touchdown passes this year, but he is throwing for a fair amount of yards, and he is running the ball very well. So I guess it really doesn't matter at the end of the day how many touchdowns you throw. He's getting the job done in terms of productivity.
Listen, this is a Tufts team that's 5-2. Their 2 losses are on the road at Wesleyan and at home against Trinity. That currently the 2 teams atop the NESCAC standings. This is a Tufts team that still has a very big game left on their schedule. They still have to play Middlebury. They play a very challenging Colby team on the road this week. So I think, again, I hate to wax poetic here, but this league is just so competitive right now. And when we planned out this podcast, if you told me that this is the way the league was going to set up, I would have never believed you. There's so much balance. There's so many things that can happen. And we'll certainly talk more on that when we take a break and we come back, as we bring you our power rankings and preview week 8. Is it really 8? 8 of 9?
It is, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, flown by. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get you ready for week 8 of 9. Everything on the line. More to come right after this. 9 Weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast. Welcome back to 9 Weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast, brought to you by our friends at Game Day Sports. Transform your game day experience with Game Day Sports, your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence. They specialize in collaborating with teams to elevate their presence and create memorable keepsakes for every fan and player. With over 25 years of experience working with NESCAC teams, trust Game Day Sports to bring your team's story to life in vibrant print materials, ensuring every game day is one to remember. Well, 25 years of experience working with NESCAC teams. Our guest has more than 25 years as a head football coach, both at the University of Maine and now at Colby. Our pleasure to welcome in head coach Jack Cosgrove. Colby has won 3 out of 4 games. Coach, first things first, welcome. We appreciate you taking some time. A hard-fought victory last week, and it's really been a wild season for your team. We follow from afar. We only saw you in person the one time, but obviously your record is 3-4. You guys could easily be 6-1. You could be 1-6. You're 3-4. How do you feel about where you guys are at in your season?
Yeah, it's been a real good year in a lot of ways. I wish it could be better. We opened up with we had a tough opener with Trinity and then Williams and then Middlebury. That's some heavy hitters in the league. Yeah. Found ourselves 0-3, but found ourselves in every one of those games with a chance at the end. We were trotting out our posse team and see if we get the ball back and maybe go win in 3 of those games. So it was tough to lose, but we learned a lot through that. Got a win, a tough win over Bates and a really good football game. Then went down to Wesleyan and lost in overtime, which was a heartbreaker because it was a tough day down there. Some things went against us that you usually don't let factor into a football game, but they did. And we recovered from that. I was really proud of how we recovered from a really tough road loss and came home and put some big numbers up on Amherst, and then had to travel 7 hours, last week. That Hamilton trip it's worse than the one I used to make at Maine. It just seems like it's forever. But we got a great win. We hung in there and drove the field, went 76 yards in 10 plays in the last drive of the game, and won it with a big touchdown with about a minute left in the football game.
Yeah, I was on the call for the Wesleyan game, and I made a comment the following week on our podcast. I said, we're going to learn a lot about this Colby team because that loss is either going to crush their souls or they're going to say, we got a lot of good football players and we're playing really good football. We've played probably the 4 best teams in this league, and we could have won any one of those 4 games. And true to form, you guys showed up and played great football. Now you're riding a nice little winning streak, and you've got everything in front of you to have a really successful season. Dave, I'm sure you've got something here. I'm sorry for taking up all the airtime.
No, it's great. It's great to have Coach Cosgrove. I've always wanted to ask you this question. It's great to finally meet you and be able to ask you. Obviously, you were a legend at Maine, winningest coach at University of Maine in their entire program history, storied program, actually. You're in the Maine Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool. I actually played for another guy in the Maine Hall of Fame, Pete Costacopoulos. I'm sure Costi pretty well, as we all do. But you came out of retirement to coach at Colby. What was that? Obviously, Colby is D3, Maine is D1. What was that transition? What was that decision all about?
I miss coaching. I semi-retired, actually, probably was the way to say it. I was worn out. I'd been at Maine for 30 years and 23 as the head coach, and it's a hard job. It's a really hard job, and it's underfunded, under-resourced, and I just was worn out. My health had taken it. And I tell people I was 60, but I felt like I was 75. So I stepped away, but I stepped into administration, and you can have that. I just wasn't a good fit there. And took me about 1.5 years to realize that. And I saw the Colby job open, and I had always been intrigued by the place, the NESCAC, the whole thing. And so I made a phone call, and next thing I knew, I was down there. And the next thing I knew, I was being very much impressed by what they had going here. And they had just broken ground on this magnificent facility, the Alphon Recreation Center. And I was seduced. I just basically said, I want to get back into this thing. It's 45 minutes from my home, but I actually ended up buying a condo down here. And my wife and I have two properties now, but we're down here most of the time because I like being close to it. I got a 5-minute ride home at night, and I love the young men that are here. They're special, and I avoided having to face this NIL thing and this transfer portal. It's not a part of my life, and I love it. I think it's a difficult thing that college athletes are going through, college sports are going through, and I don't know if it's ever going to get righted, but I think you'll lose a lot of the values that you teach as a coach when guys are just up and leaving. If I'm not starting, I'm departing. It's how it is. Yeah, it's been a great experience here for me, despite the fact that we've had some difficult times with winning football games, but really enjoy the young men. They're wholesome. They go to school for a purpose, and they come out and practice football. And the only thing I make sure is that they love the game, because if they don't love it, it's too hard to play if you don't have a passionate kind of love affair with it, because it'll just disappoint you in some way, shape, or form.
Coach, as someone who spent so many years coaching at Division I level, and we've seen over the last few years quite a few guys from the NESCAC transfer up to the what was once called 1AA. Now it's the FCS or FBCS.
FCS.
Yeah. FCS. I always call it 1AA. I think that speaks to the level of quality in particular at certain positions at the NESCAC. As someone who's obviously been front row and center, first of all, talk about the level of football that you see at the NESCAC in your, 7th year in the conference, but also talk about the positions that you see in this conference that you say, wow, there's quite a few guys that maybe can play at the 1AA or even the D1 level. What do you notice on the sidelines that would translate to your previous position?
Someone asked me once, just socially, to describe NESCAC football in terms of the level of play. And I think it's better than the old Yankee conference that I used to play in the 70s and 80s when I coached it in the 80s. I really do. The quality of football at this level has really escalated. It all goes to mummies and daddies. They're making bigger kids. And I played at Maine in the 70s. I was one of the big, I'm a 6'1", 200-pound quarterback, and I might be one of the biggest guys in the huddle. And that just doesn't happen. We have 6'5", 280 guys here now. And so they're spread across the league. You can see some young men who maybe are just not quite an FCS type player, but have the grades and the academics and a wherewithal in terms of the financial ability to go to a school in the NESCAC and compete. And as you said, this guy's the Tomlinson kid up at UNH. He goes up there. He's a captain of the team up there now. I've watched him play because Maine, New Hampshire stuff there, and something happened there. I lost you guys for a second.
You there? You there?
I'm back now. Can
Oh,
you hear
sorry.
me?
Yeah,
we're
technology is not what it once was.
Something just happened, but I apologize.
All good.
But
all good.
That's been impressive. He was a heck of a player when we played him. He's a heck of a player there now. And I think there's that. We have some guys on our team that I think could have played at a place like Maine or New Hampshire and that just a notch below it. But they're getting the full benefit here of the education that you get. And I think the piece of paper that comes with an NESCAC school rivals that of an Ivy League school. And that's pretty special.
Yeah, so Coach, as you said, you played a lot of close games this year. You guys are best 3-4 team I've ever seen. I'll tell you that right now. No, that's only a consolation. I'm saying that. You got 2 games left here. Obviously, Colby hasn't had a winning season. I'm sure people remind you in a long time. How important are these last 2 games against Tufts and Bowdoin to the football program and to these players?
I think they're real important because with this group of seniors, we've been here before. We've been a team that had 4 wins and needed to win at Tufts or at Bowdoin or vice versa here at Tufts and we failed. So this is the 3rd time the senior group has been at 4 wins with a chance to have a winning season, and we failed at it. So there's a little bit more to this now, the working knowledge of where you've been, learning from that, and what do you got to do? And we've been very frank about this game. Tufts has owned us. We've played them 5 times since I've been here, and they've absolutely owned us. We have not had any success offensively, defense. We played them down there close, 26-21, 3 years ago, and had a chance to actually win that game. But the 4 other games have been blowouts, 35-7, 38-0, 48-7. They're just haven't been close. We haven't played well, and they have a heck of a football team, and we have got to step up big time this week and really play our best football game of the season.
It seems like you don't remember any of those games, Coach. That's wild how you're just dropping those numbers on me. Listen, I've seen every team in the NESCAC. I've been covering this league for a very long time. What Dave said rings true. I watched you guys play against Wesleyan. My thoughts were you got players at all 3 levels. You got solid line play. You've got skilled players. You got good quarterback play. What do you think has been in those close games the one thing that you guys could have done better or I don't want to say better, but maybe differently that would have changed the outcome? Or do you just think it's just football?
I think early season it was quarterback experience. We made some mistakes that we've learned from. Miles Drake has had an outstanding year for us. In his first 3 games, he threw 4 interceptions. He hasn't thrown one since. So there were some things that happened in those games that, and again, Miles was our starter last year, and he got hurt in the first game of the year as a sophomore. So now he didn't get the experience last year. He had to get it early this year. He's gotten it. His game has progressed tremendously. And we've had, and you know how it is sometimes when your roster is your roster. Last couple of years, we had some major problems with injuries, and especially in the O-line. So that's been a spot where we finally got some guys back to play this year. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of injuries there now, so we're not what we were at the beginning of the year. But those things coming together, I think, are part of the reason our defense has been really grown. We have new coordinators on both sides of the ball, and I think they've had a huge made a huge impact on our players and been a huge factor in our success. Our defense has really played well. We've been much more aggressive with the blitz and not afraid to play man coverage and challenge teams to really have to play at a high level. We have a young man, Jack Mullen, who's a junior, who leads the conference in sacks. He's really developing. He's one of those guys I think might have had a FCS potential from his size, but just had the experience in high school. And he's getting it now, and he's really blossoming. And we have a lot of those guys on our defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you didn't mention Julian Young, who's certainly in the mix.
Well, Julian's our veteran guy. I mean, Julian, no, I don't, not that I don't want to mention him, but Julian's been an outstanding 2-year first-team all-conference player. He's the best linebacker in the league. I think everybody knows that. Tremendous game day player for us, gotten better each and every week. Loves the game, and he's a guy that I thought could have been an FCS guy. We were shocked that we got Julian when he committed to us. We just felt probably height is the only thing that was got in his way because his ability is certainly there.
Yeah, he's the only reason I bring him up is he's obviously been a thorn in all of his opponent's sides throughout his 4 years. Quite the player. But so we're coming now down NESCAC, obviously. There's no playoffs. There's nothing else. We've got 2 games left. We've got a kind of an interesting race for the league title this year. You've played most of the teams that are in the mix. How do you think that this sort of winds down, how the season plays out these final 2 weeks?
It's becoming a you never know league, like the CAI that I like. The years I spent there where we were always, and we embraced the term underdog at Maine. We knew we were underdogs. When you're going up against James Madison and Villanova and William and Mary and schools that had just great resources, we embraced it. And we played with a chip on our shoulder. And that was just something that I thought in that league, going to Delaware and winning was special, was just special. We did that a number of times. And then winning at James Madison with all they had. And this league has taken it feels a lot, starting to feel a lot like that with the equity that you see. Bates had a great win last week at Middlebury, and they upset Wesleyan the week before we played them. And you got to see it on tape, and they gave us a heck of a battle. So it's really becoming that type of a league where anybody can beat anybody. I think from our standpoint, the team that controlled us the most was Trinity. Our first game of the year. We ended up in the game. They were very assertive. They didn't make any mistakes. I think the thing that I told our team afterwards is they had to play their best game to beat us, and they did. And that's, I think, what we're forcing teams to do now because of our ability. And it's what Bowdoin's done it. Bowdoin's another team that has risen. The main schools are certainly better, I think, than when I got here in this league. I've seen that happen. And Hamilton's that far away from having a couple wins themselves. You just look at them and one, how well coached they are, how hard they play. They just haven't been able to get over that hump and get that win. We got the taste against Bates and really enjoyed it, missed out on it, like I said earlier, in the Wesleyan game. But we found ourselves that week in terms of how important and how much we liked winning, and got a great win against Amherst and followed up again this weekend. So there is an understanding of what it takes to win and here, and I can sense it in our players how excited they are about this week's and the opportunity that presents.
Look, Coach, we certainly appreciate you taking some time. I know you've got a lot on your plate right now as you get ready for a team, as you say, that has just given you fits in your time here. So we wish you the best of luck against Tufts and obviously your final game against Bowdoin. But like Dave has echoed, and I agree, we were so impressed when we saw you guys in person, how talented your team is and where you've come in the time you've been there. Hopefully you end the season on a high note, and obviously big things still to come at Colby, but we certainly appreciate you taking some time, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Coach, appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night. Great weekend.
You too. Good luck.
Be safe.
That is the head coach.
And well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Good luck.
That is the head coach of Colby, Jack Cosgrove. Pleasure to have him on the podcast. We'll be back with more as we preview next week's games. 9 weeks of NESCAC. Back with more right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks of NESCAC Football Podcast. We welcome in the NESCAC's leading rusher, Ryan Lynskey, representing the Bates Bobcats, coming off of a big win as they upset defending NESCAC champions Middlebury, and second win of the year for Bates, second win against one of the top 3 teams in the league. A hard-fought win, Ryan. I caught the end of the game. It was back and forth. You guys found a way to score on your last drive, big defensive stand, and then were able to hold on. We talked briefly before this. I know that there had been some struggles building the program, but talk about, how important it was to pick up that second victory, because one victory could feel like fool's gold, I'm sure. But, when you get the second one, you come close a couple times, you have to feel like you're really building something.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. It's an honor. I appreciate it. And yeah, the win over Middlebury was massive. Like you said, the first one, it proved that change was happening. And we knew that as a team, we all bought in during this offseason and we're working to get better. But the second win kind of solidifies that we're here now and that this change is happening. And it just gives us more motivation to continue to grow. And like you said, they were both top 3 teams in this league, very talented teams. So for us to take them down as our first 2 wins, it just shows the level that we can play at when we're executing and just gives us a whole lot of belief in ourselves as a unit.
Yeah, Ryan, first off, congratulations on all your success. You're having a great year, obviously. And I know you trade that for more wins. I get the sense of the kind of guy you are, but congratulations on both yours and the team's success this year. You grew up in Jersey. Let's go Jersey, Joyzy guy. I'm gonna bet at Cranford you did not run the triple option. It's just a guess. What's it like going old school and running that triple option, that flex option up at Bates? What's that all? Tell a little bit about what that's all about.
We knew it was going to be a big change from the spread that we ran last year because we were a pass-heavy team. And like you said, from Cranford, I didn't run the triple option, but I actually did play against one of the rival teams of my high school. So I knew how deadly it was. It really creates a lot of misdirection. And especially when you have athletes at each position in it, the team never really knows what's going to hurt them. And then it opens a lot of stuff up in the pass game from the ground game. And Coach Thompson has done a great job in just really allowing us to understand the offense and get us adjusted from last year to this year. And it's been really effective with our athletes. We've definitely had a lot of success in the rush game and in the pass game. And that's changed a lot from last year where we've struggled in the run. So it's been overall really good. I'm loving it.
Dave, you're asking the question all wrong because every other team in the NESCAC, the guy you want to be is the quarterback or the wide receiver. You're playing in this offense. You're talking to the guy. Everyone wants to be the dive guy. Everyone wants to be he knows going into every game, he's going to get his touches. So you're going to get your burn. You're going to get your
100%.
rhythm. And when the defense starts getting a little tired, that's got to be when your eyes open up a little wider and your ears perk up. It's your time to shine, right? It's got to be pretty good to know that you're going to get that many bites of the apple. And when there's really not that many teams that are that dedicated to running the football.
Yeah, I knew last year that while I was an important piece of the offense, that we were going to be a throw-heavy offense. And I knew with the transition to this year that I could be looking at a lot of carries. And obviously that's very exciting for my own personal success. But I hope that I can continue to have success throughout the A-gaps and continue to open up the outsides in the pass game for some of the other athletes who are just as good, if not better than me. And they don't always potentially get as many touches as I do.
Ryan, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ryan, talk about what you look at your numbers. Obviously, you've had some really big games this year, but talk about when you knew, like the moment that you knew, because it didn't happen right away. The moment that you knew, okay, like this is not your offense per se, but this is an offense for me. Like I fit perfectly into this offense. Like this is going to be a lot of fun. Talk about that moment when you realize, because the option is complicated. It takes a long time to understand the nuances of it. Obviously, I called the game for you against Wesleyan, and you guys were bottled up. And then next thing you know, you hit 2 big runs and off you are. So talk about that experience.
I think it was probably week 2 after the Trinity game. At those 2 games, I was feeling it a little bit after on the body. And that's what I knew, that I was going to be getting a lot of carries throughout the year. And while the option developed and we understood like when we can pitch it and like when we're really pulling that last man in who we're reading off, that it might take a little bit before the ball starts getting spaced out. So I would say after week 2, I knew that it was going to be a heavier run offense, especially me getting the ball. But I think throughout the year, you've really seen other people grow and get the ball more. And for example, Sergio Beltran, really starting to flourish. And he was injured the first 2 weeks, and then we weren't pitching the ball necessarily as much as we could have some of the following weeks. But I think now as we're really starting to get adjusted, you start to see a lot of other guys increase their overall load.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're arguably, other than the Wesleyan game, your best 2 games have been the last 2 weeks, right? You had a real shot against Williams, obviously. You beat Middlebury. And what's interesting is you look at the run-pass mix. You guys, the last 2 weeks, have thrown the ball a little bit more. I think 15 2 weeks ago. This weekend, you threw the ball about 20 times.
15 times this week, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so you're mixing in the pass a little bit more. That seems to be the formula. Was that intentional, just the way it worked out? Was that part of the game plan?
Yes, I definitely think it was part of the game plan, as well as just the way it worked out. A lot of it depends on the looks that the teams are giving us. And I know last week versus Middlebury, we had a lot of man situations with our receivers. And anytime we're in that type of situation, we like our guys versus anyone else's. And that was one-on-one. Our receivers were able to make plays, and Colby has been playing lights out. And our offensive line, they just won National Line of the Week, except for the second time of the year. They've been playing lights out all year as well. So I think the passing game has started to pick up, especially as we continue to run the football. It takes away from the defenders' awareness of the pass and just allows our guys to go make plays.
So, Ryan, we just have a couple more things for you here. First and foremost, obviously being in a Maine school, but not being a Mainer, you may be exposed to some things you're not used to. I don't know, like weird pink hot dogs, for example, or I don't know, some disgusting whoopie pies. No offense, Mainers. But a big thing, obviously, in Maine is when Bates plays Bowdoin or when Bates plays Colby. And you guys lost a hard-fought game to Colby, but this week you've got Bowdoin under the lights. First of all, you guys are like an exclusively night team at this point. What is this, like 7 night games you guys have played this year? Feels like a lot.
I think this is our third or fourth, and then we played a
crazy.
couple last year. We do a lot of Saturday night lights.
That's crazy because it's going to get cold in Maine. Like, inevitably, it's not going to be a good time, but that's wild. You guys do have both your wins during the day, I want to point out. So this is an opportunity for you to win at night under the lights. I was watching the Middlebury game, and long-winded question. The crowd looked incredibly hyped in that game. That looked like a full crowd that was all in, great student section. Talk about kind of the atmosphere at that game and what you expect to see with Bowdoin coming in this weekend for what obviously is a season-defining game.
Yeah, we're really blessed. We have a great student section, a great student body, and not only do other athletic teams, but any student at the school, they all show great support for us. And yeah, like you said, student section was electric. They get loud, that they're almost as invested in it as us for us to get the win. And going into Bowdoin this week, like you said, night game as well. I think this it's definitely going to be an insane environment to be in. And those are just the type of games that you just want to play in. So I think it's just going to be an amazing atmosphere to hopefully go get the job done.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because the other thing too is being at a NESCAC school, you're surrounded by so many other student athletes. And in the fall, it's not like the winter. There's no basketball games at night. Like this is the only game in town. So you should have full support of everyone. I imagine that's going to be quite the atmosphere, excuse me, on Saturday night. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, one of the really cool things that I've noticed, and I don't know if you realize this, you probably do, you guys are run first team, obviously, and you actually lead the NESCAC in third down conversions. What makes you guys so good on third down? Third and long, you guys are still running the ball, you're converting those. And that, by the way, that's been a big part of the team's success this year and certainly helped you guys against Middlebury. You had a lot of success on third down in that game as well.
Yeah, I think that we trust our guys, and when a lot of other teams might be hesitant to, for example, run the ball on a third and long, a third and 12, we know that our O-line is going to get the push and our receiver is going to come to block. And I think that because we're running it on third down, it really makes defenders worry about the run every play. So on third down, everyone's worried about pass, but against us, they also need to worry about the run. And I think that our play caller, Coach Thompson, just does an amazing job setting up plays for us all week and in the game with his calls. And he just always has the right number to call for us. So I think that's been a big thing for us on third down, the overall play calling and just trusting our players.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great point. Looking back to that Wesleyan game, first drive of the second half, you guys faced a third and long and you hit a big pass play for a touchdown. And I was talking to some of the players after the game and they said, was there just one safety on that look? And they said, yeah, like we watched the film and we thought they were going to run the football. So that's what you get from,
yeah.
I was like, it was 3rd and 12. I was like, maybe they're going to pass. They were like, no, they're going to run the football. And that's what they showed on film because it's the kind of things you have to worry about with an option team, right? Like people don't know this. Calvin Johnson played his college football at Georgia Tech in the triple option. They had one wide receiver. He was just the one. So he was pretty good. All right, Dave, I know you got some questions. We do this thing 9 weeks, 9 questions. Dave's going to fire them off at you. So fire away, Bagatelle.
All right, here you go. You ready, Ryan?
Yes.
Buckle your seatbelts here. So what's your major, Ryan?
I'm doing an interdisciplinary major, so it's creating an exercise science major. So I'd say I'm a STEM major at Bates.
Very cool. Excellent. And what's been your favorite class at Bates so far?
Favorite class at Bates? Arts and Spirituality, my freshman seminar.
That sounds awesome.
A lot of drawing.
Love it. As we discussed, you're a Jersey guy. You somehow ended up in Maine. If you didn't attend Bates, where would you have been going to school?
Most likely Ithaca.
Okay. All right.
Bomber's getting a lot of love on this podcast. Not the first person whose name dropped the
Someone else
Bomber.
heard that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good football program up there. Good school. Ryan, what do you want to do after football, after Bates?
Hopefully be a strength and conditioning coach at a top college for football.
Awesome. Maybe Ithaca.
Yeah, who knows?
And who's your role model, Ryan?
My role model is my mother. She's been there for me my whole life, and she's just a lot of hard work for me and for my future. So for sure her.
That's great. And what's your favorite professional football team?
The New York Giants.
Well, you and I share that too. We get the good, the bad, and the ugly, don't we?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm so over this.
All right, we're gonna get there eventually. We're gonna get there.
You have a better chance of seeing it than me because I got
Hold
40 years on you.
86, 90, 7, 11. That's 4 Super Bowl wins. I'm going to count one other Super Bowl you lost.
You got 69.
I got 69. Yeah, that was great. That's great.
Chris, you were not even born in 69.
I
know
watched
that.
the entire game in its entirety 14 times. I can tell you the broadcasters on the call. Don't worry about it.
There you go. So, Ryan, what's your favorite food?
Chipotle.
Oh, come on.
Awesome.
You're better than that.
Just especially at college, that's been my go-to recently. So
I love it. I'm with you. And so you got a big game this week against Bowdoin. What should we look for this week from the Bates Bobcats?
a lot of physicality and energy. It's a big game for us, and we're very excited to get out there on the field and just show who we are. So I would just say physicality and energy.
Awesome. And our 9th question for 9 weeks, what do you like to do in your free time?
Play video games with my friends after practice. When we get back, if we don't have homework, we like to just talk about the upcoming game, relax a little bit, a very busy schedule throughout the season, and just play video games.
What's your game of choice? I could guess, but what's your game of choice?
Recently, it's been Call of Duty.
I knew you were going there. See, he thought you were going to say NCAA, but
I thought it was going to be. I hadn't seen
a lot of Black Ops 3 we've been playing.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Boy, what I wouldn't give to be in your shoes, my friend.
Good times.
You're living the dream.
Brian, thanks for answering those questions and bearing with me on that. Definitely appreciate you for that.
Thank you. No problem at all.
Ryan, we wish you the best of luck. It's going to be an interesting contrast in styles. Bates with the option look, and then obviously Bowdoin has linebackers that fly all over the field. It's going to be a heck of a game. Under the lights, only game in town, only game at that time, and we'll be paying attention. We'll have to stay tuned to see who Dave picks in that game, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. So we appreciate your time. Best of luck, and give our best to Coach Coyne and all the Bobcats.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on. Have a good night.
Awesome.
Good luck to you, Ryan.
Awesome. That's Ryan Lynskey, the NESCAC's leading rusher for the Bates Bobcats. We'll be back with more 9 weeks, NESCAC Football Podcast right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks, NESCAC Football Podcast. We welcome in. He's now a regular. Listen, there's 9 weeks. He's had at least 3 of them. Matt Coyne, head coach of the Bates Bobcats, now literally the most viewed person probably in the history of this podcast, coming off of a big win. Listen, Matt, you guys, the wins haven't been easy to come by in your tenure there. You got 2 of them this year, and you've beaten 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league. And I watched don't tell me when I was broadcasting a different game at the time, it was a different sport, but I watched probably the last 8 minutes of that game. I saw your touchdown drive. I saw your defensive stand. I saw you guys get that first down at the end of the game. That would just look like a heck of an atmosphere and a heck of a team win. Talk about the totality of win number 2. Obviously, it means more than establishing culture. You win a game. To beat a team like Middlebury and in front of a crowd like that had to be pretty special.
Yeah, I think thanks for having me on. And I don't know if I'm the best 3-time appearance, but I'm the first. You know what I'm saying? I'm the first. The best, but no, I think obviously that atmosphere was great. As we talked about throughout this whole season, while the wins haven't been the easiest, I don't think it's ever easy to win in this league. And what we're doing with our group right now, It's just we're getting better and we're improving, and you can see the scores shrinking, and we're able to find that resolve in those clutch moments to win a game. And I think one of the things we talked about as a team that's building into a culture that is chasing championships at a place that really hasn't done that recently is you got to go through different stages, and we get these moments against these top teams where you get down by 6 points or 10 points and it's, oh, here we go again. That's the old mantra, rather than, all right, let's go get it back. And to be able to do that, I think what was different about our first one with West was we had that lead the whole game. We were able to hold on to it. And this one, we had to come back, and then we had to make the stop, and then we had to take. So it was really big for us in the next step and progression of our program, just to validate what we've done since we've gotten here with the right individuals, the off-season programming, the culture building, and to do that with a lot of alums, a lot of people on campus, and that crowd was crazy. Fans, it's awesome when you do something for the first time in 36 years. We did something earlier this year for the first time in 43 years. Those are big notches as we progress towards the ultimate goal. Again, like you said, it's win number 2. That's what it is. It's a big one, but it's win number 2, and we got to try to chase win number 3. I'll just keep pushing along. But super proud of the guys and to be able to take down a really talented coach team in Middlebury.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I noticed in the last 2 weeks, obviously tough loss against Williams, but close. And I know you like to beat Williams. You like to beat them when you were at West, and you like to beat them at Bates. And we know what the history is. And then Middlebury, big win. But the last 2 weeks, you seem to be mixing in the pass a little bit more, and it seems to be working. Was that sort of planned, or did that just happen, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, I think it's also for us, it goes by the flow. And I think the biggest thing with what we do is the hardest part for teams that play us is they only have 3 days to prepare for us. And I think for us, we saw some things once we figure out you can't really run 16 different defenses against us because you don't have time to practice it. So once we find out what people are doing a little bit, it helps us switch up what our philosophy is within our systems. And really for us, we feel like we have a really talented offensive line. We were going up against one of the best defensive lines in the league with those guys up front. They're heck of players, and we still committed to the run game. But once we found out that we had certain matchups man to man, we like our guys more than anybody. And I'll say it all the time, I'll take Zero, Sergio, he's a player. And when you match up with a man to man, we like our chances on that. And we saw that opportunity throughout the day there a little bit with his 5 attempts, and he made some plays. And Colton, I thought, played probably one of the best games of his career, to be quite honest. He had one bad decision that led to a pick, but to be 13 of 15 and be highly efficient, again, that's what the run game does for you. But it makes it so that the pass game opens up and becomes really easy with your reads. So I think it's just an ebb and flow of the game and trying to figure out what we have to do to lighten the box maybe at times. If teams want to put 9 guys in the box, we got to throw the ball to get 8. For us, I think it just is the ebb and flow of the game, and it's good to have Colton play the game he did and then have some of the targets out there or the individuals catching those targets and making plays.
Look, obviously it seems like it's all these building blocks are coming together. You look at, we just spoke with Ryan Lynskey and we're talking about, I remember the Georgia Tech teams when Calvin Johnson was just the lone flanker and you're running triple option and then, oops, but I got this dude out there. And when you have a quarterback that you trust to make the right decisions, it really, you got a lot of cards in your deck right there. I think for me from afar watching, when the play at your quarterback position has been what's allowed your offense to be so scary. I don't think there's any teams that want to play you. But the second thing you might not know that's most scary is that we had Coach Manigo on our podcast last week. Okay. Now, coaches are 1-6 on the podcast, 1-6 months following up appearances on our podcast. So I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to tell you that this is your moment.
Yeah.
This is the closing thought. This is your moment. Okay. We got to change the trends because this isn't going to have a year or two if this keeps happening. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Don't let the fame of the only unofficial NESCAC podcast prevent coaches from coming on here. Okay. This is the moment. All right. You've got an opportunity. It's in
Chris,
front.
I told you to keep that one under your hat.
No, I'm not going to do that because I stare at adversity and I kick it in the face. Okay. So this is the moment. All right. You've got, obviously it's a big rivalry. It's Maine on Maine. Someone's got to win that game. One of the teams is going to win it. But if we want to have year 2 of this podcast, I need you to come through for us this week.
Yeah, we're going to do our best. We know the challenge. Bowdoin's a very physical and really good team. We know what they're bringing. I think Coach Hammer's done a good job with that program. And creating that competitiveness. And they've won games and they beat us last year. And for us, we know it's a rivalry game, so you can throw everything out again. Just as the Colby game we played earlier, 2-point game that came down to the wire. We know, hey, we've got to come back and learn from our past. We had a big one against West, and then we had a tough loss, a really good game. So for us, we know the challenge ahead. And I think as we talk about with our team, we respect all of our opponents, but really our biggest opponent is ourselves, and just making ourselves better and trying to take those building blocks as you develop this program. And I think our guys have challenged themselves all week. We don't really have to pump them up, as I'm sure Bowdoin doesn't have to get pumped up as well as they start their CBB campaign. It's going to be a physical football game, and we're up for that challenge. But really proud of our guys. And I know you talked with Ryan Lynskey. He's a heck of a player and he does a lot, load management and taking those carries. We're very fortunate to have him on our side, So we're ready for the challenge. We're up for it. I hope we can break the curse. You create your own luck, so you do it by hard work, and we're just working hard, and we're going to go out there and give it everything we have in front of a great crowd.
Listen, it's all good because we got Coach Hammer on next. No, I'm kidding.
So we got a 50-50 shot. You guys,
we're gonna break the curse. That's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna have we're gonna have multiple coaches going up against each other. No, listen, Coach, I know you got things going on, but we appreciate taking a couple minutes. I know it was important to Dave and for me to check back in with you. It's a big win. Keep getting those big wins. We'll keep having you on the podcast. We appreciate you taking some time. I know you got a little one, so best of luck to you and the family, and good luck this weekend.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And this podcast is awesome. What you guys do are great. Continue to support it. Gives us notoriety around the league. And I think it's just something that's been missing for a little bit. So always happy to come on and share with you.
Awesome.
Obviously happier after wins. We're going to try to keep doing those.
All right.
Appreciate you, Matt.
That's the deal.
No problem.
All right. Bates Bobcats head coach Matt Coyne will be back with more 9 Weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast right after this. Welcome back to 9 Weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast, along with Dave Bagatelle. Chris Gray's back with you. Dave, listen, everything good comes to an end at times, and the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle, was having a heck of a run. He really was. But in the NESCAC, you get a little later on, the rivalry games start coming. Games get harder to predict. Rough week for the NESCAC, man.
3-2. You know what? 3-2.
3-2 for an average man is a great week. For the NESCAC man, 3-2.
Let's analyze the two losses. I lose the Bates game, which, by the way, I'm happy I lost.
Whoa, we're an impartial podcast.
Okay, but I didn't say why I'm unhappy I lost that, but I'm not unhappy about that. And then the other game I lost was the Tufts-Williams game that, let's face it, could have gone either way.
Crapshoot.
So,
I didn't know it was going to happen.
And by the way, I did say it was going to be a 3-point game, and it was a 3-point game.
You did. You don't get points for saying it's going to be a 3-point game on the wrong side. But listen, I kid because I care. I fry because I care.
Hey, and what's my record on the year? 30-5, Chris.
Listen, he is both selfless.
I'm on pace to set a record for picks this year, on my own personal record, just for the record. So.
Well, don't get ahead of yourself.
No.
There's a lot of pressure coming up right now. Power rankings. We digress. Not a lot of changes. Wesleyan and Trinity still atop the power rankings. Big change, obviously. Middlebury losing debates. Did that impact your power rankings?
It did. I moved Middlebury down into a tie with Tufts for third. So I did the cop-out move. Middlebury and Tufts tied. They're going to play each other. So we're going to see next weekend. Assuming they both hold serve this weekend, no guarantees. We'll see in week number 9 who the better team is and who deserves to be ranked ahead of home. Same with, for that matter, Wesleyan and Trinity. You might as well, you could put them tied for first two because, if they can both get wins this week, it'd be easier, I think, a little easier for Trinity, but they're going to play each other in week 9 also. We got the top 4 teams all playing each other with the NESCAC championship on the line. Everything else pretty much held serve. We did move Bates up a spot off of their big win in Middlebury. So congratulations to them.
When we look at the slate for week 8, and I was, just taking some notes before we started. And what's really interesting to me is you look at the NESCAC standings and you only have one team that's winless, but you have 0 teams that have 1 win. I've been doing this for a long time. I can never remember a year where there was this much parity. Now, there's still clear levels, right? But I think within those levels, all of the teams have been tested, and every coach we talk to speaks on this. And sometimes it's coach speak, but it's really not. Hamilton's 0-7, and played 3 or 4 weeks in a row where they played really good teams and have been in the games for a half, 3/4 into the fourth quarter. In this case, with 2 minutes left, they were winning. It's a really balanced league. So I think it's exciting for what we have to come. I think there's another twist or turn to come that we just don't know what it's going to be yet. We look forward to this week. We start previewing these games, Dave. First one to look at is Hamilton traveling to Middlebury. Obviously, it's not going to get any easier for Hamilton. They have to go to Vermont and still looking for their first win. There have been some building blocks for Hamilton, but nothing to show for it. Any chance, in your opinion, that they can pull an upset in Vermont?
Yeah, this is one of those little known rivalry games. It's the old rocking chair game. Let's not forget that.
I know the rocking chair story.
I don't know the story, and maybe I'll Google it. It is a big rivalry. I assume the winner gets to take home the rocking chair or something like that.
No. You're going to get yourself in trouble here. You got to know about the rocking chair with Middlebury.
Okay. Can you do it in 30 seconds or less?
Here's what I know. My sister attended Middlebury. And
Okay.
I'm gonna Google it right now, but there was a super fan from Middlebury that used to always sit in a rocking chair, and he was profiled in Sports Illustrated. I think I'm going to get in trouble now, and we can cut this if I'm wrong, but I think his name was Earl. And let me see here. All right, we'll get back to this because now I'm pulling up literal rocking chairs on my Google, which is just
I'm sorry I even mentioned this. So it's
you did this to me, but listen, it's a rivalry game.
Yeah. It's a rivalry game. It's being played at Middlebury. I don't think they're going to be happy about losing to Bates. They also still have something to play for. Although unlikely in my mind, I don't give them a lot of chance to win the championship and repeat. They still have a chance. I think Middlebury comes out and plays well in this game. And I think Hamilton, by the way, is playing better. They have played better the last couple of weeks. I still think Middlebury wins by 10. I have it 27-17, 31-21, something like that, but Middlebury comes away with the win, Chris.
The tradition of competing for the rocking chair began in 1980 when Jack Kirk of Middlebury and William Bristol of Hamilton dedicated the chair at a pregame ceremony. The goal was to increase the competition between the two schools. That's the long and short of it. So I made up the other part.
Yeah, it's a fake rivalry.
No, it's a good rivalry. Listen, rivalries are important. Trophy games are fun. All right, Dave. Next one up, we've got Bowdoin and Bates. Listen, we've obviously had plenty of Bates flavor on this one. This is a super interesting contrast in styles, I think. You think about, you've got a Bowdoin team that brings all sorts of pressure and a Bates team that runs the triple option. So anything could really happen. Obviously, it's inter-main matchup, a big game for both teams. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, this is a rivalry game, CVB game, obviously. Bates already lost to Colby, but Bowdoin is still playing for the championship in that. Tonight game at Bates, weather forecast is decent, so that shouldn't really be a factor. I think this, as you said, is going to be really interesting. I really want to see, we're going to be watching this game at the tailgate, so I'm really curious to see how that...
Well, not we, but ye.
Okay, I will be watching the game at the tailgate. And I'm really curious to see how that blitz, high pressure defense, how that interacts with the triple option. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, as you said, contrasted styles. I think it's going to be a super close game. I think Bates has played great the last 2 weeks. They could have beat Williams, as we noted earlier. They did beat Middlebury. They've got their Beltran's back. Bagatelle is limiting his mistakes. Obviously, Ryan Lynskey is leading the NESCAC in rushing. So I'm going to go with Bates by 3 in this game, Chris, at home.
Bates by 3.
24-21-ish, something in that range.
Bates looking for their first night win of the year. They've had plenty of opportunities. They've had a wild schedule this year. It's like their third or fourth night game. Okay, Tufts and Colby. We talked to Coach Cosgrove earlier. He mentioned the demons that have come with this rivalry. Tufts has dominated this rivalry since he's become the coach. But having seen both these teams in person, Dave, it's always fun for me on a selfish level when I can talk about a game. Unlike you, I don't have the unlimited resources. I can't just pop a tent and watch as much football as I'd want. Those days are far gone for me. So I have to tell what my eyes see, and my eyes have seen both of these teams. I'm telling you, don't let the records fool you. These teams are very evenly matched. With that being said, how do you see this matchup going?
I think it helps that it's being played at Colby, so they have the home field advantage. I think this is going to be one of these nip and tuck close games. Colby plays very good defense. I'm gonna trust Michael Berluti in this game, and I'm gonna say that Tufts pulls it out and wins by 4.
In Berluti, Dave trusts. Listen, I don't make picks very often, but when I do, I pick with my gut. This isn't one of those times. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. I feel like Colby is a team that's senior laden. They've got I'm telling you, at all levels, they're like a couple of plays away from being in the mix for a NESCAC championship this year.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I don't want to talk myself out of my pick. Both of these teams are playing for something. Colby's playing for their first winning season since 2005, and Tufts still has a shot at their first NESCAC championship. Outside chance, but they still have a chance. They are both playing for something. So
I'm going to tell everyone those scenarios in just a second, but you're right. But I'm telling you right now, I don't want to get anyone fired up, but I got a feeling. I'm just feeling a Moscow Mule Saturday. I don't know why. I'm just feeling it.
So you're going to come right out. Just might as well say you're picking against me in that game. You're going with Colby.
Yeah, I think that the ragged horse beats the gigantic elephant, I think is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sticking with that.
By the way, I don't think a mule is a horse, technically.
I said a ragged horse.
Okay. Just want to be clear.
No, how would you describe a mule?
It's like a donkey, I think.
Donkey's like a horse.
No. That's like saying it's like saying a zebra's a horse. It's not.
Literally, I said a ragged horse. It's like
it's a different animal.
Horse. It's a horse adjacent. Oh God, we're gonna get canceled without any viewership. It doesn't matter. Okay,
we're gonna lose our one sponsor.
That's it. Listen, we love all the mascots. It's what makes the NESCAC so special.
By the way, we can do a special on just the mascots. They need to go back to the horseshoe on the helmet, but we'll talk about that another time.
For another time. All right, we got 2 games left on the slate. Trinity and Amherst, a game that normally has massive implications. Trinity will be traveling to Amherst for this one, and maybe Amherst found something last week. It could be a sneaky trap game for Trinity. We saw Amherst jump out in front of Wesleyan, but it just seems like Amherst is a year or 2 away. It seems like this is going to be quite the challenge at Prattfield.
Yeah, I don't give Amherst much of a shot in this one, Chris. I played scenarios out of my mind. It's one of those games. I think Trinity wins 35-6, 38-3, something like that. I don't think that I think this is going to be pretty much a beatdown. And the only thing I think is if Trinity starts looking past Amherst, that Wesleyan gets a lead, they start thinking about next week and playing both teams coming in 7-1, and it's going to be 10,000 people and all that kind of stuff. But beside that happening, they don't throw. Xander doesn't throw interceptions, so you can't even look at Amherst getting a lot of turnovers. Maybe Marie Kill just goes crazy and has his coming out party. But I think Amherst is just, having seen both teams play, I think just Amherst is just completely outmanned in this.
Yep. Just a little overmatched, it seems. Okay, so the last game on our slate, full disclosure, Dave, not at all concerned or worked up about this game, has no interest in it, but it is the most competitive game, just as a neutral, matchup-wise, that we have on the slate. So Wesleyan and Williams taking place on homecoming in Middletown, Connecticut. I'm imagining you probably don't have strong feelings one way or another on this one, but just out of curiosity, if you were to have to diagnose the way you see this going, if you were to be there and you were to care, how would that kind of play out?
This is, for the record, this is our game of the week.
Yes, that's why we do it last.
This is yes, if you didn't catch on to that, thank you, Chris, for that pointer. The big Little Three game, big rivalry game. Of course, Wesleyan's already beaten Amherst, so they're out of Little Three this year. Wesleyan is going for their third Little Three title in 3 years. They haven't done that since 1946, 1947, 1948. That's the only other time that they've ever won 3 in a row. Wesleyan's won the last 5 times at Andrus Field. Wesleyan, I think, has won 10 of the last 11 games against Williams. The only loss was the year that Williams went 9-0, Bobby Maymoron's senior year.
2019,
that team was completely loaded. Excellent team, and it was a beat down. I think they beat Wesleyan 35-0. There's no shot Wesleyan's going to come out flat in this game. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be a huge crowd up there at Wesleyan. And Wesleyan has everything to play for. They have the Little Three. They can win 2 championships in back-to-back weeks, take care of business on Saturday, and then so they're not going to look past Williams to get to Trinity. That's not happening. I think Wesleyan's defense is the number 1 defense in the NESCAC. That's saying a lot because there's some really good defensive teams in the NESCAC. Obviously, Trinity plays very good defense. Colby plays very good defense. The offense played better in the second half. Last week, they seemed to have found the running game. Very talented freshman. We saw Matt Diaz get his first action of the year, and he was very impressive, scoring 2 touchdowns. James McHugh also ran the ball very well. And what was really most impressive about that is you didn't have a lot of negative carries, and that had been a problem coming into the game. It was a lot of positive yardage. With that being said, Williams has a very talented team as well. They've got some really good young players. Obviously, we've had Owen McHugh on. He's a very talented quarterback. He's multidimensional. He runs and passes very well. Last week, he threw a couple of interceptions, so he is prone to do that. They lose their starting tailback. It looks like, from what we understand, a pretty bad ankle injury last week, Mario Fischetti. So remains to be seen whether he's going to play. We talked about earlier. Ethan Scott's having a great year for them in the defensive line. They got Tim Linduffy back, the linebacker. He's a very good player. Holden Gehring in the secondary. So they're a very talented team, and I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with the next couple of years. I just feel like on homecoming day with the size of the crowd and Coach Dice, of course, Williams alum, Williams legend, great player at Williams. Since he came over to Wesleyan in 2010, and since he's become head coach, he just seems to have his alma mater's numbers. So I think the game, Wesleyan wins 27-20. I think Wesleyan wins by 7. I think Williams maybe scores late to make it a touchdown. I think Wesleyan's defense rises to the occasion, has a big day, stops Williams at the end, and comes away, and we win. Wesleyan wins the Little Three.
Wow, that's a conservative prediction from Dave Bagatelle right there. Listen, I've had the pleasure of being on the microphone for a handful of these games, not as many as I would like to, obviously not as many as you've seen, but pretty much every single one of these games is wild, wacky, exciting. Whether it's Amherst or Williams coming into Middletown for that homecoming game, it's always an event. It's always an experience. But it feels, I'm going to be careful with my words here, but it feels like maybe the Williams-Wesleyan game feels a little bit bigger. I don't know why that would be, because Amherst is closer in proximity, but it just feels that way. With that being said, Wesleyan is 6-1 and beat Middlebury by 40 points in week 1 and hasn't won a game convincingly really the rest of the season. So this is going to be a competitive game. Let's not kid ourselves. Don't let the records fool you. It's a Williams team that's lost 2 very close games, and they lost to Trinity, a game they were up 14-0. So this is going to be a 4-quarter game. Obviously, you mentioned the stakes for Wesleyan, the stakes for Williams also. Coach Raymond, we talked to him a few weeks ago, and they're building something there, and we thought they're probably a year away, but there's a big difference between being 6-3 and being 5-4, assuming that they can beat Amherst, which is a whole different set of circumstances. So there's plenty on the line for them, And winning a little 3 can be a building block for a program. I'm not going to predict this one because, like Kirk Herbstreit, I don't predict it when I'm on the call. But I hope you'll tune in live at 1 o'clock on the Northeast Sports Network and on all smart TVs and all devices if you're not able to be at the game. If you are at the game, please seek me out and say hello. I'd love to meet you, as I'm sure Dave would as well. But excuse me. Yeah, I think it's all finally poised, Dave. We're through 7 weeks. It easily could have been Trinity and the rest of them. And Middlebury stepped in and changed the narrative. And now we're 2 weeks away, and we're 1 week away from setting up an epic showdown, but a lot has to happen until then. Any final thoughts before we shut it down?
No, a lot of important games. This is what you want. It's week 8, and there's still a lot of intrigue.
I think every game.
Yeah. They all matter at this point. That's the beauty of this league. That's frankly the one thing I think a couple of the coaches have talked about it. I think at some point in the not too distant future, the league champion's going to be going to the Division III playoffs. And in some ways that's good. In some ways it's not so good. There's something about a 9-week season and the finality of it all. It's over before Thanksgiving, but
not so fast. Yeah, I don't want to hear you telling me that a playoff's not good. Okay. You could do both things. Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that.
This is an unofficial NESCAC podcast. NESCAC, if you're listening, playoffs are good. Okay. Only thing that happened in playoffs is people win stuff, people lose stuff. It's good.
The only negative about it is I think it'll take a little bit of juice away from some of these games.
Nope, it won't, because people are still going to want to win the NESCAC so they can play in the playoffs, and those banners are still going to go up. It's still going to be awesome. No one will forget it. Only thing is they get to keep playing and try to win the championship on a different level. Won't shortchange what they've experienced. And that's how you build to becoming, like the NESCAC has done in every other sport, they will build to becoming a national championship quality program in football. That'll take time.
I'm looking forward to going to see Wesleyan play North Central in the Stag Bowl. That'll be terrific.
Amos Alonso Stag, you're all over it. Real quick, last thing I wanted to point out, listen, we're 2 weeks away from the conclusion of the season. And to my math, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that still have a chance mathematically of sharing a NESCAC championship, which means winning a NESCAC championship according to the unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Pretty cool. I can't remember the last time that's been the case. So everything to play for. All right, Dave, we've said enough. You got to see the Yankees if they're going to hang around for another night or not. But for Coach Jack Cosgrove, for Ryan Lynskey, for Matt Coyne, who literally probably should take my spot because he's on this podcast more than I am, and for Dave Bagatelle, I'm Chris Grace. We hope you've enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you on the tailgate on Saturday. Whoever you may root for, come say hello. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Football coming on Saturday, just 2 weeks left. So long, everybody.